Yes, the benefits of having a professional theatre company here, and young people coming out of the
Duration 30, recorded 26
to make a professional career here in their own hometown.
That's right.
We played TV8.
That's what I was thinking.
It's one of the
Welcome again to the Valley's People. Today we're going to discuss the Hunter Valley Theatre Company, and no better man to discuss that than the chairman of the Hunter Valley Theatre Company. And also from the Central Coast, a man who's spent his life collecting World War II and earlier museum pieces. And his collection is quite a fascinating list. Hope you can join us today. Meet our two guests in the Valley's People. Thanks for joining us today. Theatre in the Hunter Valley is not necessarily new. I mean, a lot of people have old programs from the Victoria Theatre and the Roxy Theatre and the Lyric Theatre and many others that have come and gone. But theatre, a full-time theatre company, is relatively new to the Hunter Valley. And here's the chairman of that, the Hunter Valley Theatre Company, Malcolm Barnes. Welcome to the Valley's People, Malcolm.
Thank you, Ron.
And I guess the first thing we've got to say about your career is that it's a bit unusual to find an actor who rises to become chairman of the board.
I guess it is unusual. I've been an amateur actor for some time, and now, for my sins, I'm chairman of the board of the Hunter Valley Theatre Company. Yes, it is fairly unusual. I would hope that I could bring to it a sensitivity and a sympathy for the kind of pressures that the artists have, along with a fairly prudent business and administrative sense. I hope that I'll be a good chairman, and I hope that I can bring all of the facets that are needed to guide the company through the next few years.
Yes, the development of entities such as the theatre company is not easy for a provincial city. I mean, it's all right to say that we're the first outside a capital city, but you must first establish a need outside a capital city, haven't you?
Yes, indeed. It's been 6 years since we were first founded, and it's been a long, hard road. Our subsidies have been increasing year by year. We have our own home in the Civic Playhouse, and that's some sort of minor miracle in that it's paid for and it's there and it's air-conditioned. Yes, it's been a long, difficult task, and we're confident that we're about to break through and that we'll be able to balance our books and ensure that the Hunter Valley Theatre Company stays in Newcastle.
It seems a long while then from when you were a young fellow at the Abermain of Stedford. I don't know whether you were in the Abermain of Stedford, but I'm just going to say that everybody who's been through the theatre and elocution and singing in the Hunter Valley has been through the Abermain of Stedford, so it's a pretty safe punt.
Yes, I was. A long time ago I competed in the Abermain of Stedford, doing a whole range of things from Shakespeare and modern plays, poetry, the works. One thing I remember quite clearly is once I was doing a speech from Julius Caesar, and I was playing Mark Antony in full brass armour, the plumed helmet, the whole bit. But what was required was a coffin, or a Roman version of a coffin, and so it was so huge, the prop that we made to take up to the little Abermain of Stedford Hall had to be strapped on the top of a car, and it was undeniably a coffin. And if you could have seen us driving through the streets of Newcastle and then up through the coalfields to get to Abermain with the coffin strapped on the top, and the really amazed looks of the passers-by as this
It was El Cheapo funeral.
Yes,
I guess,
El Cheapo, I suppose, yes.
Yes, we shouldn't really be so offhand, I guess, about the Abermain of Stedford, because, I mean, for years and years, that was just the blossoming point, wasn't it, for so many people?
Yes, it's a group of people up there of Welsh descent, I believe, who have banded together in the tradition of their homeland to hold this series of festivals every year. And I think they've been going for about 50 years.
Right.
And they're really a tremendous impetus to the cultural life of the whole valley.
Now, what do you think about the cultural life that can be dictated from and also contributed by a theatre company? I mean, what should it set out to do in an area such as this?
Well, I think largely what the Hunter Valley Theatre Company has set out to do and has achieved is what it ought to be doing. The essence of a professional theatre company, I think, should be that it provides employment for local people, not just actors, and that's happening here, but production people, technicians, promotion people and administration. We should provide a resource centre for theatre, which helps the amateur groups, and there are plenty of those in Newcastle and the Hunter Valley. We do provide acting classes and summer schools, liaison with schools for specific productions of Shakespeare that they might be studying, a whole range of things, and the Playhouse is very much a resource centre for all of these things that help theatre and other cultural activities in the community.
Yes, I've been looking through the old letters to the editor of the Newcastle Herald. In fact, anywhere I could find some sort of feedback towards the theatre company, Malcolm. I still am amazed, if not dumbfounded, by certain people who write in and talk about light-hearted, popular theatre as if it was a sin or a crime or something. I mean, what's wrong with being popular?
Nothing
Can you
at
be
all.
so arty as not to cater for the people in the Hunter Valley?
Well, you shouldn't be. I believe that professional theatre, any theatre, ought to give people largely what they want. I think there's room for a small amount of experimentation, a small amount of education, if you like, but I certainly believe that theatre must give people what they want, and that's largely what the Hunter Valley Theatre Company is doing. We've got a very balanced program, and our programs each year are becoming more and more successful, with thousands and thousands of Newcastle people coming to see our productions and being a part of the cultural life of the city and the valley in our new playhouse.
Yes. How many people a year would you plan on now, after 6 years, to see your productions?
Well, I think around about 28 to 29,000 people
Really?
came to our last year's seasons, and this is very encouraging. We're hoping that it will grow because we believe that we're giving them the kind of theatre that they do want. Our artistic director, Arnie Nemi, who will be with us all through 1982, has looked at the position and seen the kind of theatre that people want, and he's adapted his artistic policy that way. And so far it's proven very successful.
Yes, because you are chairman of directors and you have fellow directors, I guess, at the board meeting, and
Indeed.
And at the same time, you've got to account now for what, over $150,000 worth, or in round figures, of taxpayers' money.
That's right.
Do you feel that weighing on your shoulders, or do you subscribe to the viewpoint that any amount of money should be got for culture, and we know better? I mean, how do you approach the taxpayers' angle towards a theatre company?
Well, the Board of Directors is very aware of the fact that they're handling public money, and that nearly $150,000 or over $150,000 represents only, I might add, 38 cents per person per year for all of the population of the valley that the Hunter Valley Theatre Company services. We're very conscious of the fact that it is taxpayers' money, yours and mine, and we ensure that it's very prudently spent. We do everything that we can on a shoestring, but we do believe that professional theatre, when it's employing local people and providing a service in an area that has no tradition of professional theatre, ought to be subsidised. Those subsidies to most people, Ron, would appear huge, $150,000 for a small theatre company, but when you take into account the fact that our weekly payroll is over $4,500 a week and we are employing 18 local people, then it's eaten up very quickly. That level of subsidy only subsidises us for about 7 or 8 months of the year. We're still not, in our opinion, even at a very reasonable level, fully subsidised yet. We're hoping, though, and we're very optimistic about it.
You say you're employing, but some would say almost slave labour.
Yes,
not that
indeed.
you're getting them cheaply, but I mean the amount of work that someone has to do there is incredible,
right,
because
yes.
you're putting on a play so often, aren't
That's
you?
right. We run in repertory around about one new play every month, and so the actors particularly have an enormously hard grind. They are appearing in one play, rehearsing another, and towards the end of the first play, they're starting to look at the third play in addition, and their hours are way beyond the kind of salaries that they receive. They do it because they love it, and it's a way of life that's quite different to any other.
So on any given week, they're virtually performing and rehearsing.
Any given week, and
Yes.
sometimes they're performing, rehearsing, and doing preliminary readings of the one afterwards. Yeah, yes, it's a long, hard haul for them.
What I like about the current director's outlook is the fact that you're very much wanting to take the Hunter Valley Theatre Company to the valley.
That's right.
And regular tours are in the offing?
When we first started, we had one tour which went right up to Armidale and Lismore and all over the place, and which was a disaster. We've, in the last 12 months or so, we've had 2 tours a little more closer to home, Taree, Wyong, Gosford, and a lot of points in between. One was a 3-week tour, another one was a 2-week tour, mainly to outer suburban areas and some of the towns in the valley. This is really, we believe, one of our primary objects, in that we must be the Hunter Valley Theatre Company in actual fact as well as name. And, but touring, of course, is extraordinarily expensive.
Yes.
And we've been getting some special grants to tour, and we hope that this will continue as well, because we would like to be the theatre company of the Hunter Valley, not just the theatre company of Newcastle and Lake Macquarie areas.
Yeah, my background suggests to me, Malcolm, that you're far too young to be a church warden of the Christchurch Cathedral, but you are, and I just wonder how you feel, because you know, you're a generation younger than most of them.
True, yes, it used to be that you had to give about 50 or 60 years service to the church before they made you a church warden, but I think in the past few years, 10 years, that the church has changed. It's had to adapt, and I think it's always been very slow to use the talents and abilities of its people, and about 5 or 6 years ago I was elected by the people of the parish to be one of the 4 church wardens at Christchurch Cathedral in Newcastle, and I hope I'm contributing something.
Well, I'm told that you're the one who contributed the idea of souvenirs into the cathedral, which
Yes.
is a bit of an innovation. After
Well,
160 years.
I think, yes, I was the one who was loaded with the job of implementing it. We had a souvenir shop constructed in sympathy with the area that it was to be placed in, and we got some fairly good souvenirs, and they're being sold to the many hundreds of tourists who come through the cathedral each week.
And some flack, I would think.
Oh yes, some flack. Some people think that the church perhaps ought not to be involved in this, but if the church is to survive, in my opinion, it must be run as a business. With discretion, of course. I don't say that they should be selling souvenirs around the altar or anything like that. The souvenir shop's placed out in the porch, and it's open only at certain times, but it provides a service, and the cathedral is not only a place of worship, it's a noble public building that this community should be proud of, and it does attract hundreds and thousands of visitors every month.
Yes, I just wonder how the relationship, or whether you have to in fact make compromises between your position of, say, church warden and some of the themes selected by the modern playwright stage of the Hunter Valley Theatre Company.
Well, I have very little to do with the artistic side of the Hunter Valley Theatre Company. That's left entirely with our artistic director, Arnie Nemi. I understand what you mean, though. No, I think that the church is full of people of all kinds. I think that a church warden, as an administrative job, is important, but I think that you have to realise that the church should encompass, as it says in the prayer book, all sorts and conditions of men. And if those people who are in the church who perhaps wouldn't like the idea of a church warden acting in a somewhat risque or modern play, they must realise that the church should be catering for everyone, not just a few. Not just the good ones, some of the bad ones too. There's a whole lot of people out there who have nothing really to do with the church. And I think any influence that you can get through the theatre or the arts, and this is what is happening at the cathedral, the church is, particularly here in Newcastle Cathedral, is doing a lot of things to encourage the performing arts. We built a new $11,000 or $12,000 platform there, which rises up on hydraulic lifts, and you can put ballet or a full-scale orchestra. We've had a series of drama seasons there, and the whole building is becoming accessible to the community through the arts.
That sounds a lot like the showmanship of Malcolm Barnes to me, but I won't ask you about that.
I had a bit to do with it, yes.
Yes, and as far as you're concerned in relationship with the Hunter Valley Theatre Company and its ongoing influence in the Hunter Valley, our upcoming actors, you feel that there's some protection there? We are going to bring more of these people forward?
Yes, I do. It's long been a dream of mine, and I think a lot of the other directors when the company was first started, that young people who felt the desire and had the ability to take up a career as an actor or an actress should be able to do it here in Newcastle. If they come from the Young People's Theatre, from the university or from any of the schools where they've done courses in drama, that if they wish to take this up as a career, then why should they have to go to Sydney or elsewhere? I think that perhaps it's a good thing, and that the Hunter Valley Theatre Company provides this opportunity for local people to do their thing locally.
Yeah, well, it is a good thing, Malcolm, and congratulations on your position of chairman, the amount of work that you're doing with your other directors for the Hunter Valley Theatre Company. Our congratulations also to the members of the cast and the group. And let's hope that 6 years goes on now to an eternity. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you.
I'll be back with our second guest, a totally different background, in just a moment. Welcome back to the Valleys, people. Outside of Wyong, on the road which goes through to the entrance, is quite a recent development as these kind of things go. It's the Tuggerah Lakes War Museum. And the owner of that is Ken Hughes. Welcome to the Valley's People, Ken.
Thanks very much, Ron.
I guess there are a lot of people watching now who in fact think in terms of war museums as those people who devote part of their study or their front room or back shed or something to a collection of medals and armoury and so on, and not to decry that by any means, that interest. But I think the most amazing thing about your museum, when you go, as I did for the first time, was its size. It tends to rival some of the floors of the Canberra War Museum, and I think it's set apart, isn't it, as war museums? It must be the biggest around in this area.
It is the biggest in the Commonwealth apart from Canberra, but there's a big gap between us and Canberra naturally.
Yes, yes, but not necessarily on the manner of display. You seem to have a degree of spaciousness to be able to put out the World War II vehicles and things that allows people to have a very good look at them. And I think it would be an eye-opener for most people who would imagine it to be something less than it is. Now, where did you collect all this from?
Well, it's been a long, long haul. We've been collecting since the mid-1940s and restoring vehicles, particularly over the last 15 to 20 years. When they're relatively easy to get now, they're very, very hard to obtain in any type of condition, whatever.
Yes, and I guess you'd say that the collection was priceless, wouldn't you? There's no way that you could establish the current rate of some of the things that you've got.
No, there are things there that would definitely be priceless and irreplaceable if anything was to happen to them.
And do people come along and say, I'll give you $5,000 for that, Ken, or something?
Oh, we have had offers made for things, but naturally we tell people that they're to display, not to sell.
Yes. What would be one of the offers would you have on some things?
Well, we have been offered $25,000 for a Japanese World War II tankette, which is one of only 3 in existence in the world today, but naturally we declined that offer.
Yes. That's, I think, also makes this war museum of yours fairly distinctive, is that you've got a lot of things of which there are only 1 or 2 left.
That's correct. We have a German Kubel wagon, which came into Australia in 1959 from the desert, from Benghazi in particular, and there's only another in Australia to the best of our knowledge. We have a Leyland Retriever, which also is the only one in Australia to our knowledge. Also we have an armoured command vehicle, which was similar to the type which Rommel captured from the British in the Middle East in World War II. The only other known one to exist to them is in the Royal Corps of Signals Museum in England, so we do have a few things that are unique in this country. Yeah,
I know it's been virtually a lifetime hunt for you, but where do you find all these things? You've got ambulances and jeeps and motorbikes and just about everything, including things that fly.
Yes, well, you do get told by friends that know of your interest where things are available, and you endeavour to purchase them from the person that is holding them, often, very, very often unsuccessfully. You do observe things yourself as you're driving on the road up under trees and so forth, but we've come to learn if they're easily observed from the road, they're not available because everybody else has tried to get them too. So usually you rely on people giving you some information about something they've got in their barn themselves that they are desirous of either donating to the museum or selling to the museum at a figure if it can be determined.
Yeah, it's a bit colourful, I guess, but I mean, do you really find them in barns and paddocks?
Oh, yes. We find a lot of things. We've got an ambulance in there which is fully restored, and we amaze people when we do tell them that actually it was used as a fowl house up at Emmamore in Queensland, and we also found another one which was used for the same purpose at Inverell in New South Wales.
And that's the ambulance used by the Army or services during the war?
Yeah, World War II Army ambulances, yeah. Finished up their days as fowl houses before we got them.
Some of the things I think a lot of people can relate to in your collection, particularly coming, say, from Sydney or Newcastle or Wollongong, you've got World War II searchlights, which most people who lived through that period can recall probing the skies. Yes,
they were a very essential part of the defences of Newcastle, Sydney, Port Kembla, Wollongong during World War II. We have a searchlight there which had a range, 150 centimetre searchlight, had a range of 27,000 feet. They were usually attached to either Bofors guns or 3.7, depending on the importance area they're trying to defend. The Bofors gun, which is displayed with the searchlight, was originally invented by a Swedish woman just prior to World War II and used by most armed services, both friendly and otherwise, during World War II, and up till the present day they're the main deck armament on our patrol boats used off the Australian coast.
Wasn't a slip of the tongue, was it? You did say Swedish woman.
A Swedish woman, correct, yes.
Really?
Yes.
as a scientist?
Yeah, she invented the
Inventor.
Bofors gun, yeah. Fires 120 rounds a minute, 40mm rounds per minute.
Another thing there that a lot of people in the Hunter Valley can relate to, of course, is the little amphibian, the Jeep,
Yes.
that saved quite a few pieces of property during the floods.
Yes, well, the ducks were very much a part of the hunter scene back some years ago. Well, this little amphibian was at a place called Chinchilla in Western Queensland and on the Condamine River. And this thing did sterling service through 23 major floods, 5 of which were in a fortnightly period. The little thing was incidental in saving numerous lives and gaining awards from the Humane Society for the people that were operating it during the time. The ambulance superintendent at Chinchilla, who was there when the vehicle was introduced into service in 1946, is still there, to the best of my knowledge, 2 months ago.
Yes,
So,
it's now part of your collection.
it's part of the collection now, yes.
Yes, and what about, there are a multitude of tanks and things, but there's one
Yes.
particular armoured vehicle there.
The Saracen, which is a 6-wheel drive vehicle, it's powered by an 8-cylinder Rolls-Royce motor. The Australian Army no longer uses these vehicles, but the British are still using them in Northern Ireland. Most movie film of Northern Ireland activities will show a Saracen buzzing around somewhere, pushing a blazing vehicle out of the way, or troops getting about their chores using the Saracen as their armoured cover.
You mentioned there the things that you see on movies and television today, and one of the things that you brought along intrigues, because I think a lot of people would have seen something like this, and that's the World War II behind the lines radio unit. It's been part of
Yes.
a lot of spy films, hasn't it?
That's right,
Could you give me the story on this one, Ken?
Well, these were a set which were produced in England in quite sizable numbers during World War II, and unfortunately the enemy finished up with a lot of these sets plus their operators. The sets were designed to transmit back to England from the confines of a hotel room or any other place where these fellows could set up and get their message out, often with very fatal results before the message was actually completed.
Because the German detection was very strong too.
That's right. They used to just run a piece of wire around the room in which they were doing their little bit, and hopefully the message got through to England, and they did often get their messages confirmed and knew that they were successful in establishing contact with England. Then they moved on and tried to find out some more relevant information about the activities of the opposition and relay it on to England for the RAF to try and remedy the situation in our favour.
Yes. And the cap that you brought along, Ken, is that special significance, or is just another one of the caps there?
No, that's not another cap. That's the cap which was worn through the entire desert campaign by a very famous Australian general, General Sir Ian Mackay, who was the General Officer commanding the 6th Division throughout the desert campaign in Greece and Crete. We do have the entire uniform of this famous person, as we do with other famous Australians. We have the uniform of Sir Francis Nicklin, who was a predecessor to Joe Jockey Peterson in Queensland. We have his uniform there. We have Air Commodore Kingwell, who until recently was the Queensland Governor's personal secretary, and many other equally prominent Australians dating back to the Sudan War. The uniform there of Lieutenant Colonel Richardson, who led the New South Wales contingent in 1880 to the Sudan. We have his uniform. We have Ross Smith from the Air Flying Corps of the First War.
Yes, and these things in your mind become quite hallowed, don't they? I mean, you wouldn't wear that cap, for instance, would you?
Well, I wouldn't like to see anybody wear it, because I don't think anybody could justly wear that hat.
Yes.
Or cap.
Yes, yes, that's true. And Ken, you came to the Hunter Valley, or the Central Coast, didn't you, from Caloundra?
That's correct, yes.
Yes. What brought you here with this the Worth Circus extravaganza, truck after truck after truck?
Yeah. Well, often I wonder when you see what is developing on the Sunshine Coast of Queensland, but I came here chasing multitudes of people, which I think we will ultimately find, because the vast population of Sydney, which is almost equal to the entire population of the state of Queensland. Then to the north of us, well, we have Newcastle, which is not to be underestimated at all. We're hoping to let the people of these areas know that we have a museum which is worth visiting, because most people are inclined to have trepidations as far as museums are concerned, because they've seen so many rough ones in their time that have been very, very disappointing. This one will never disappoint anybody, well,
No,
as you know yourself.
Yes, I went through there, and I believe it to be quite a showplace. The thing that interests me too is the fact that you know, you have hundreds, I guess, of these sort of things on display. You could spend almost a day there reading up on all sorts of things. But is it just a collection to you, or you know, how do you value this? Are you always looking out for something else?
Well, you never cease looking for things. You're like an alcoholic. Once you're caught, you're caught. You stay with it all the time, and you always have your ears open, and you always ask your friends to keep their ears open and their eyes to alert you to anything which may become available, either locally or overseas.
Are you missing anything that you're aiming for? You seem to have everything covered.
Oh no, you'd never cover the full range of things that we'd like for that museum. We can.
Well, what would you like? What are you aiming to set up finally? You've just about got every vehicle, haven't you? Every kind of vehicle?
Oh, we have very, very good coverage of World War II vehicles that were used in this country and used by US forces, our own and the British, but and also enemy vehicles such as the Japanese tankette and the German Kübelwagen. But no, we're always looking for other things, and there's that many names that I could give you that we could go on ad infinitum with the names.
Well, you may find another chicken coop there. It's been good enough for 2 ambulances so far.
Yeah,
Let's see what
well,
happens now, Ken.
Yeah.
But congratulations on setting up this new enterprise. I mean, it's not easy to bring something as vast as you have to the Central Coast, and I think it's not easy for people generally to realise just how large it is. Congratulations on that. Thanks for coming in today, and we wish you the best of hunting for more vehicles from earlier wars.
Thanks very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Ken. Bye. And I'll be back in just a moment. Our guests today have been Malcolm Barnes of the Hunter Valley Theatre Company and also Ken Hughes of the Tuggerah Lakes War Museum, his own collection now on public display. Hope you've enjoyed our 2 guests, and I hope too that you'll be with us when we meet 2 more of the Valley's people. Goodbye for now.